After you read this thesis, we would first like you to assess these 4 criteria. To achieve this goal, we would like you to evaluate this thesis as you would evaluate any journal article, scholarly book, or dissertation, with just a few exceptions. First, sometimes, because of logistical constraints, candidates may not have been able to collect all the data they need to generate many significant results, to uncover meaningful insights, or to replicate their findings. Unlike journal articles, in which you judge whether the research actually contributes significantly to knowledge, we would prefer examiners judge whether the candidate applied the practices that are necessary to potentially contribute significantly to knowledge. Second, candidates might sometimes have utilised paradigms, methodologies, or methods you feel are flawed. Rather than comment on these concerns, we would prefer examiners judge whether the candidates demonstrated critical thinking, that is, a keen awareness and insight into the limitations of their research. Third, because some candidates do not speak English fluently, the written expression might not be flawless, but should be comprehensible. Rather than attempt to address every writing flaw, we would prefer examiners comment broadly on the principles that candidates should apply to improve their writing, from avoiding tautologies to using active voice, for example. Or examiners might indicate sentences they could not understand. Fourth, we would also like you to evaluate whether the material is substantial enough, whether the scope of research is adequate. Although hard to evaluate, the scope of research in a PhD should be roughly equivalent to 3 or perhaps 4 ordinary papers in the field. In contrast, the scope of research in a Masters by Research should be roughly equivalent to 1 or 2 ordinary papers in this field. This definition refers to ordinary papers because outstanding papers might comprise 10 years of work and are thus significantly more extensive than a PhD or Masters by Research. The thesis might also include 1 or more articles the candidate has published. You should evaluate these publications like you would evaluate other chapters in the thesis, but obviously be mindful the journal editor might have imposed some constraints on these publications, such as the word length. Either before or after you evaluate these 4 criteria, we would like you to write a report, often comprising between 2 and 6 pages. This slide presents a short extract from a typical report. This report should summarise both the strengths of this thesis as well as your concerns. For example, you might refer to vital literature that was overlooked, key arguments that were unconvincing, or research methods that were not justifiable or justified. Importantly, when expressing your concerns, please indicate how you feel the candidate should address each issue as precisely as possible. Finally, usually after you have completed the report, we would like you to recommend one of 5 outcomes. First, if you did not express concerns in your report, or you felt these concerns do not need to be addressed in the thesis, but could be addressed in future papers, recommend the first option. Second, if you feel the candidate needs to correct only the spelling, phrasing, or punctuation, rather than substantive arguments, recommend the second option. Third, if you feel confident the candidate can address your concerns that include substantive arguments, recommend the third option. Fourth, if you are not confident the candidate can address your concerns, and indeed you are not sure the thesis will even marginally fulfill all 4 criteria, recommend the fourth option, in which the candidate needs to resubmit the work to you. Finally, although uncommon, if you are quite sure the candidate could not even marginally fulfill all 4 criteria, even after revising the thesis, recommend the fifth option.